Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Chris Dumit, the guy who made Parker Schnabel's gold mining business work for more than 10 years, left. He didn't just quit his job, he walked away from work that was really hard on him. Now there's a huge hole in the team that nobody can fill. Everyone says he was just tired out, but that's not the real story. The real reason has to do with a big fight that happened where nobody could see it, and the show won't tell anyone about it. For lots of years, Chris Dumit was the strong one on Parker's team. When things got messy, Chris stayed calm. He was the person in charge of collecting all the gold, and he was really good at his job. But in season 15, even Chris started to break. Things had been getting harder for a while. But this year, Parker wanted to do something different, and it pushed Chris past what he could handle. It all started when Parker had an idea that nobody thought would work. He wanted to run 3 different mining machines at the same time. It sounded like a smart way to get more gold, but really, it was a nightmare for Chris, the person who had to collect all that gold. Suddenly, Chris wasn't just taking care of one gold room. He had to clean up gold at 3 totally different places, and these places weren't even close to each other. One place was 15 miles away from the others. This meant Chris was always driving around the mining area, trying to be in 3 places at one time. It was way too much work. A regular cleanup is really hard and takes a long time. It means moving heavy mats, cleaning them off, and very carefully collecting every tiny piece of gold. Now Chris had to do that 3 times a week at 3 big places. He was working longer than ever before, and he was stressed out more than ever before. You could see on the show that he looked tired and upset. He was doing too much and he knew it couldn't keep going like this. He told Parker that he needed help. One person couldn't do the work of 3 different mining operations. What made it even worse was that Chris had back problems. Lots of fans know that Chris has had really bad back pain for many years. That's actually why he stopped driving big trucks and loaders and started working in the gold room instead. All that truck driving hurt his back so much that he just couldn't do it anymore. The gold room was supposed to be an easier job that didn't hurt his back as much. But now Parker's new plan had him driving all over and doing heavy work at 3 different places. His body just couldn't take it. He was in pain. He was worn out. And he was being pushed to his limit. The goal to get tons of gold had hit a problem. And that problem was Chris Dumit. He had given everything he had to the mine, and now he had nothing left to give. But was the hard, tiring work the only reason Heffenly said he was done? Or was there something even bigger going on that the cameras didn't show? A disagreement that nobody ever saw? The story the show tells is that Chris got so tired out from work that he just couldn't do it anymore. He was loyal, but the pressure was too much. But people close to what happened say there's a different story, one that's way more interesting. The real reason Chris left wasn't just about having too much work. It was something big that had to do with money and 2 people who didn't believe in the same things. Chris was an older guy the old-fashioned way, and Parker was a young guy who wanted to get rich. As Parker's gold mine got bigger and bigger and made more and more money, the team started to change. The group of friends who worked together like a family were starting to feel more like a big company. And with a big company comes new problems. Parker wanted to find a huge amount of gold, like $40 million worth. To do that, he had to push his team really hard and use all his machines as much as possible. This is where the 2 guys started to fight about what they believed in. For Chris, a man who was in his late 50s, life was about more than just digging up gold. He cared about his health, feeling good, and getting paid fairly for doing good work. For Parker, a young guy who wanted to break records, all that mattered was the numbers, getting things done fast, and making as much money as could. The story going around is that Chris felt that people didn't appreciate how hard he was working and how loyal he was. He was the most important person running the mine, but he was being worked so hard without the help he needed. This led to a big fight when nobody was watching about whether loyalty meant sticking with your job even if it hurt you, or if loyalty meant taking care of yourself first. Chris got stuck in a corner. He could see that the mine was becoming a place where people didn't want to work because everyone just cared about getting gold and didn't care about the people doing the work. He picked himself. He decided that his happiness and his health were more important than any pile of gold. His quiet way of leaving wasn't just saying he was done working. It was like saying no to a system that he thought had lost its way and what it was really about. This kind of feeling hurt, real or not, keeps happening on the show. Workers have switched teams before, and it caused huge problems and drama. When Chris left, fans had lots of different opinions. Some people thought he was totally right to leave a job that was breaking him. Other people thought he should have stayed loyal to Parker after all the years they worked together. But to really get why this was such a big deal, you have to go back to the very start. before Chris Dumit was even a gold miner at all. Before Chris Dumit was someone people knew in the Klondike, he was a guy who built houses in Oregon. For 25 years, he was a carpenter, and he was really good at building things that would last a long time. He got into gold mining by accident. In 2010, in the very first season of Gold Rush, Chris got hired by the Hoffman family to build a small house on their property. He was supposed to only work for 10 days. Those 10 days changed his whole life. He got to the mine and right away got caught up in all the crazy, wild stuff the Hoffman family was doing. He ended up staying for 5 months instead of just 10 days. During that time, he learned how to mine for gold just by doing it and making mistakes. The Hoffman family's mine was known for things breaking, equipment that didn't work, and plans that almost never turned out right. It was a messy place that wasn't very organized. But for Chris, it was like school for mining. He saw what happens when things go wrong. After working with the Hoffman family, Chris knew he loved mining for gold, but he wanted to work with people who did things the right way. That's when he met Parker Schnabel. In season 4, Chris joined Parker's team, and it was a perfect match. Parker was nothing like Todd Hoffman. He was young, he was careful about doing things right, and heckled about getting things done well. Chris had just lived through all themes with the Hoffman family, so he right away loved how Parker did things the professional way. He fit in real quick and became one of the most important guys on Parker's team. All of this background made Chris super valuable to Parker. He wasn't just another good worker. He was someone who'd been through problems before. Heck knew what it looked like when things went really wrong, and he understood that doing things the right way was important. He wasn't just there to run our machine. He was there to help make a mining operation that was steady and worked well from the ground up. He had a way of thinking about things that nobody else on the team had. And this understanding that both of them had about what it takes to win in the Klondike made the bond between this older carpenter and this young mining expert really, really strong. It was a friendship that would become the most important thing in Parker's whole business. The friendship between Chris Dumit and Parker Schnabel was more than just a boss and the person who works for him. Over the years, it turned into something way more important, like a dad and his son. Chris wasn't just the guy who worked in the gold room. He was like Parker's teacher, his best friend, and the person who helped the whole team know right from wrong. This became even more true after Parker's grandpa, John Schnabel, died. Chris started to be like that for Parker, giving him smart advice and helping guide a young man who had a huge, growing business on his shoulders. Every time Parker was worried or upset, he would go find Chris. Chris would listen to him, talk about his problems, and then he would say a few smart things that always seemed to help Parker feel better. He was good at looking at the bigger picture and reminding Parker what really mattered the most. He would always tell Parker he believed in him and also cared about Parker as a person. He made the whole team want to keep trying even when stuff went wrong. He would make jokes to make people laugh, keep everyone's mood good, and help the team find answers instead of blaming people for problems. But the best proof of how close these two guys were, the only thing that shows how much Parker trusted Chris, has to do with the room where they keep all the gold. The gold room is the most important part of the whole mine. It's where millions and millions of dollars in real gold is kept every single week. Any other person who owned a mine would have cameras everywhere in that room, watching every move. But Parker never did that. One time, someone asked Parker if he ever thought about putting cameras in the gold room. His answer said everything. He said that he would only think about cameras in the gold room when Chris Dumit decided to stop working. That one thing Parker said shows so much. Parker trusted Chris so much that he didn't even need cameras. He knew that as long as Chris was in that room, all the gold was safe. Putting in a camera would have been like telling Chris that Parker didn't trust him, and that would hurt their friendship. This huge trust, though, might have also been bad for Chris. Parker saw Chris not just as someone who worked for him, but as a super strong, steady part of his business. He put so much faith in him that maybe he didn't see how much stress Chris was under. The trust itself became another thing that made Chris stressed out. Chris wasn't just tired from working hard. He also felt like he had to carry the weight of millions of dollars, and a young man who loved him like family and believed in him totally. When Chris finally couldn't take it anymore, it wasn't just because his back hurt. It was because he was scared of letting Parker down because Parker believed in him so much. The nicest thing Parker ever said about him might have also been the thing that made Chris's job harder and harder until it was too hard to do. It was a weight that Chris didn't have to carry. Because unlike lots of other people on the team, Chris had a whole different life waiting for him somewhere else. To really understand why Chris Dumit could say goodbye to one of the best gold mines in the world, you need to look at what his life was like when he wasn't mining. His choice to leave wasn't because he had no other choice. It was a choice made by a man who liked other things and had a good life he could go back to. Unlike some of the younger people on the team whose whole lives were about mining season, Krish had other choices. For 45 years, Krish has been married to his wife, Sharon. Together, they have 2 kids and have made a good family life far away from all the mud and machines in the Yukon. When winter comes and mining stops, Chris and Sharon don't stay in the cold north. They go to Palm Springs, California, where it's warm and nice. It's a place where Chris can rest and feel better. He likes to go fishing, play golf, and just have some time to breathe easy. But Chris is more than just a man who has a family with some hobbies. He's also really good at business. Lots of fans know that Chris loves a good cigar, and you almost never see him without one. But not lots of people know that he turned that love into a real business that makes money. He and someone else started their own cigar company called Dumit Gold Cigars. The company called Tradesman Cigar Company makes lots of different kinds of cigars with names, like the D10 Gentle Giant and the Oro, Negro. He talks about his cigars on the show, and it has become a real success with stores all over the United States, and cigars aren't the only business he has. Chris also really loves good wine. He loves fine wine so much that he started to make his own wine, which he called Huge. He's good at lots of things: a carpenter, someone who's good with guns, a gold miner, and a guy who starts businesses. People think he has about $600,000, and he makes about $25,000 every time he's in an episode of Gold Rush. All of this shows a picture of a man who didn't need Parker's business to live. He had a wife he loved, a nice life in the warm sun, and his own businesses that made money. He had the money and the freedom to decide to be happy. When the job started to hurt his body and his feelings, he had the strength and the money to leave. He was in a strong place. He could choose to take care of himself more than he cared about another man's business. But the story isn't over yet. There is one last crazy story that makes his leaving not just a choice, but something that felt like Huant against Parker. In the tight world of Klondike gold mining, where people who work together are like a family, being loyal is everything. Crews are like families, and the boss is like a general leading his soldiers into battle. Leaving your crew is a big deal, but if you leave your crew to go work for your biggest competition, that's like going to war. And that's the last crazy story about why Chris Dumit left. The story is that he didn't just quit. He left Parker Schnabel to go work for Rick Ness's team. If this story is true, it changes everything. It makes a sad goodbye seem like a huge backstab. For more than 10 years, Chris was Parker's most trusted guy. He was the one who knew all the secrets. He was the person who knew everything about how the business worked. If he took that knowledge and what he learned to a team that worked against Parker, it would be hard to believe. It would feel less like just getting a new job and more like he stabbed Parker in the back. Rick Ness and Parker Schnabel have a long story between them that's hard to explain. They fight all the time to get the best place to dig, the best team to work with, and who can get the most gold. If Chris went to work for Rick, it would be a huge power move in the Klondike. It would help Rick a lot and hurt Parker's business a lot, and also hurt Parker's feelings about himself. Nobody saw it coming. The thought of Chris Dumit, like the dad of Parker's team, working for Parker's competition seemed like something that would never happen. But in the world of Gold Rush, where you can make or lose lots of money every year, who you work with is always changing. Whether this story is true or just something made up for the show, the fact that people tell this story show much people felt when Chris left. It wasn't just losing a good worker, it was the end of a time. It made Parker's crew feel shaken and made everyone ask what could happen next. The guy who was calm and steady and kept everything together was gone. And instead, there was a story of betrayal that people in the Klondike will talk about for years. In the end, the real reason why Chris Dumit left Parker Schnabel is a story about knowing your limit. In the big chase to get millions of dollars in gold, he found something that was more important. He found his own peace. He gave up working for a gold mining business to get back his happiness and the ability to live his own way. After lots of years of giving everything to another man's dream, he picked himself. In the world of Gold Rush, where every small piece of gold jets counted, Chris Dumit left with the only thing that really matters: the chance to keep going the way he wanted to.